Non-sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.
Warning. The following live stream is intended for an uncommon audience. Those suffering from religious celiotitis, idiotic use of the word scientism, or geoplanetary flatardation are advised not to watch any further, as this could result in symptoms including feeling triggered, loss of wokeness, or the need to comment in all caps. However, if you think bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred, then we say hallelujah. This is Non-Sequitur. Never follow. And now, here are your hosts, Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae.
People that you're so happy to be here.
He's welling up with this.
Okay, he's so happy to be here.
He's crying because he's on the Non-Sequitur Show. This is the first.
Yeah, well, if I was just coming to this channel and saw some of the, especially the interactions with the flat Earth people, I'd be crying myself. So
well, people have left crying, but they never came here crying. There's a difference.
I want to thank all the little people.
We are the little people.
Awesome.
Exactly.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Non-Sequitur. As you can tell, we have Adam Kokesh is here with us. We're going to get into it in more detail, but recently, when did you actually suspend your presidential campaign and switch over to the U.S. Senate?
I believe officially it was 2 weeks ago now.
Excellent. Well, I think that this is going to be a fun and interesting show for you guys. We don't usually cover much into politics, and I've been wanting to change that because I think it's important, especially with the election that we have coming up, not only in 2018, but also in 2020. So this would be kind of the perfect show to do that. And many of you probably recognize Adam. Adam, you've been an activist for how long?
About 11 years now. But hey, I got to jump in already. First of all, you can't oversell your guests like this. Fun and interesting for like 90 minutes. I don't know if I can live up to that, especially if you want to talk about politics. And I got to tell you, you're wrong. I already got to correct you, Kyle. You're wrong about politics.
This is not 5 hours long, by the way. We're going we're going to do 24 hours with you. That's
okay. Yeah. Well, I hope I don't get bothered by a police officer here on the side of the road then. But
you don't answer questions. You don't answer questions.
Politics, I don't answer questions. I have a card in my wallet from Mark Victor, attorney for freedom in Arizona. Next time I get arrested or get pulled over, I'm just gonna hang this out the window. But no,
you get that jail card. You actually got one. Just ask if you're being detained. If you're just
that's all.
Yeah, if you're being detained, then fine. If not, drive away.
The last thing it says is, "Am I free to go?" So yeah.
There's a YouTube video.
No, but seriously, you want to talk about politics, Kyle? We got to start off putting politics in proper context, because politics is a way for dumb, ugly people to sound smart and important and get people to ignore the fact that they're ugly. That's why they call DC, Washington, Hollywood for ugly people. Politics is really, really dumb. We're going to decide, of all the ways for society or for people to make the most important decisions, allegedly, and a lot of them are should we go to war or not? That's pretty should I smash my balls with a hammer? That becomes a really important question when you start.
Is that something you ask yourself a lot?
I can answer that very important question. No.
You wake up every morning and go, should I smash my balls?
That's the answer when you ask the question about politics. Should government? No. Should we go to war or not? No. Should government do this? And nothing, because everything government does is backed up by violence, by coercion, taxation, and theft. That's the premise of government, is that it's a territorial monopoly on the initiation of force. It's fundamentally unethical, and it's holding back humanity. So while I am often introduced as a politician, I'm not. I'm an anti-politician. That's the entire point. I am technically right now not running for U.S. president, actually not running for not president, because that's really what I'm doing with this campaign. And we suspended a couple weeks ago, when I was invited to run for U.S. Senate here in Arizona. We just had this mailer go out a few days ago with myself and Barry Hess. We can get into that. But my platform for the presidency is to dissolve the federal government. And I'm not even going to take office longer than is required to start this process. I'm not putting the ring on. I'm throwing it directly into the fire. I'm going to sign one executive order, declares the federal government of no authority, bankrupt, and I resign from the presidency to become custodian of the federal government like a bankruptcy agent of this obviously bankrupt institution for the purpose of carrying out this plan that people are going to see in advance in detail and know exactly what they're voting on. So again, bottom line, politics is dumb. The less relevant we can make it, the better. So congratulations on this being like your big politics show.
Oh man. Well, I can also say that you are wrong, because you said that there's no way you could be fun and entertaining, and that was literally the
for an hour and a half.
Opening
For an hour and a half.
I
guarantee you at some point I'm gonna. I guarantee you in 90 minutes I'm either gonna piss you off or bore you at some point. And if I haven't really, I haven't done my job, because if I haven't pissed you off, I haven't challenged your thinking enough, and if I haven't bored you, I haven't gotten intellectual enough. I guess
we have a pretty high threshold to be pissed off.
Yeah. Once again, I think you probably should have watched some episodes on here before, because our patience is like we've got that under control. If you've ever been looked at in the face on a show and said, have somebody say to you, viruses don't exist, the earth is flat, and Steven Tyler is a hoax, and you don't blink, then that's what we deal with here. So we're going to be good.
They call Kylie a discount garden gnome. That was 6 months ago, and he's still reeling from that.
Yeah.
But,
we don't let grudges go. But this is going to be fantastic. We're going to take a quick second break from sparring here, and just as always run through what we've got coming up for the week, and then we'll jump straight into it. So up on the screen, Dave will put up the cards, and we'll go through them very quickly so we can jump right into it. Following this show, it's a double header tonight at 10 p.m. We've got Scientist Mel and Steve from last night will be coming back to have a debate on gun control. So that will be at 10 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow we're going to be releasing the Matt Ford BuzzFeed interview that we did. Monday is Jerry Griffith with how King James created the King James version of the Bible. On Tuesday, Prophet of Zod versus modern day hysteria. They're going to be debating on, is it rational to believe in God? Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have the African American experience. Those are two gentlemen that are creating a sort of African American version of the atheist experience coming from their worldview. So that will be at 8 on Wednesday. Thursday is Bunty King versus Vadim Newquist. They're going to be talking about free speech. And then Friday is Tim O'Neill, where we'll be going through the Dark Ages. Following that, next Monday will be Issues with Islam. This is a continuation of a series that V from Theomachy came on and did last week. This is going to be part 2 because we didn't get to finish it. And then the last 2 announcements that I want to put out there. Everybody knows about the well, Dave, go ahead and switch over to side 10, and then we'll end up with the Joe Rogan thing. But on 8/28, a big show, side 10 Bruggen Kate will be having a discussion with Raul from Street Knowledge. Side 10 is back, and he's going to be on here. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. And then this is the big announcement. Everybody knows how we've been talking up the Christians Against Dinosaurs show on August the 14th. This is a group of people that don't believe that fossils are real or that dinosaurs ever existed, that it's a hoax to make us think that the earth is a lot older than it used to be. Joe is going to join us for that, but I reached out to Mr. Vale, who is, you should be seeing his picture right now. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast several times, actually, but he is a paleontologist, and he is hilarious, and he was more than willing to come on here and explain to these people why dinosaurs are a thing. So make sure that you join us for that. Yeah. You see what I'm talking about now, don't you, Adam?
I never thought I was going to be at a show where we had to explain to people that dinosaurs are a thing.
To a
Never.
future.
To have to explain to people that the Earth is older now than it used to be.
Yeah, I know. Like as of yesterday, all of a sudden it's 4.5 billion years, but yesterday there was only 4.5 billion and less than 1 day older. So yeah,
The Earth
Right.
is getting younger, guys. It's getting younger every day. I mean, have you seen? It's not just moisturizing. It looks really good. The Earth
it looks
must
great for its age. It's
You
aging
joke.
well.
You
It's
joke,
science.
but I guarantee you there are people. Steve and I know this guy on Twitter named Maddie's Paradigm, and he believes that hell is actually in the center of the Earth, and that because it's expanding at a quick rate, that's what's causing climate change. That it's breaking through and causing our planet to warm up at an alarming rate. So
right.
Yeah, wrap your head around that one.
I have a very important theory about flat earthers because I've studied this a lot, and I've because it's a very important subject. You know, are these people insane? Are they a threat to society? No, and I think from the clear conclusion from my research, anyways, they're all trolls. That's it. There's trolls. None of them actually believe that the Earth is flat.
You're so cute and naive.
They're just
no,
messing with you.
they
No,
re-
they're messing with you. You fell for it. You
I
lose.
used to
You
believe that,
lose.
brother. I used to believe that. I've been doing this a long time. There are a few that really are that stupid.
Those are just the really good ones. They're just really good at fooling you. And
Then
the more you
they
talk
should be
about
in
them, the
Hollywood
more they
then.
win.
I agree with you,
Watch the
Adam, and
movie.
Steve and I have this conversation quite often.
Yep.
But I actually, and I just said it before you actually came in. We were talking about when we've got coming up down the road. But I said the same thing, that at their core, I don't think that anybody can possibly believe that the Earth is truly flat.
I'm telling you, there are ones that are out there. I could go into some detail on who they are, but I'm convinced that they are.
Well, the thing that pisses me off most about flat earthers is that in speeches, I used to have this great analogy that I would make. You know, people, like comparing freedom to government, right? You know, people think that like today government is good and righteous and necessary, and soon we're going to realize, oh no, it's not. You know, freedom is a better way for humanity to get along. And it's sort of like, well, people used to think the Earth was flat in the center of the universe, and then someone came along and said maybe it's round and it's not the center of the universe. And you had all these people who had done all this math, explaining the orbits of the stars and the planets based on a flat Earth being the center of the universe, and they go, hey, Earth is round and it's not the center of the universe, and all the math gets really simple and it makes sense. And if you had done all the math, a lot of those people have to go in and like redo the math over and over. Like if you did 1,000 equations to do this funky math, and then you go to the new model, there's only 10 equations, and you go, that can't be right. It was so hard for me to figure it out before. Like it was so hard for me to justify government. It was so like I had to really embarrass myself at parties trying to defend this idea that government is necessary and that politicians love you and that police are looking out for your safety and that taxes aren't theft. They're the price we pay for a civilized society. I mean, just silly, absurd crap like that. And then you go, no, freedom. And it's like, you have to, really go through and do the math 100 times until it's the same amount of math and it displaces the old model. So now when I give speeches and I say, like, to introduce that whole bit, I go, well, people used to think the Earth was flat and the center of the universe. And then people have to, like, every single time I've said that in a speech, someone goes, some of them still do.
Yeah, it's scary. It's growing. There was a report that came out like a month and a half ago that said that a third of millennials question the actual shape of the Earth and its position in the universe. A third of millennials.
Well, hold on. If you just say question the shape and the position in the universe, you put it in those terms, that's reasonable, because a lot of people think the Earth is round, and we say that it's round, and technically it's not.
Well, it's called a regular Blake spheroid, but
right.
They don't. But when we say that they question it, they have no idea whether it's flat or round. They're looking at it as, could be either.
Could be either.
NASA
okay.
lies.
So when you mention flat Earth to people in your seminars, is it so like everything else that follows kind of is less crazy? And I'm not saying your position is crazy, but I mean,
no. I'm making the point. No, I'm only using this as an analogy to show a comparison of historic development of human thought and understanding of the world around us, where it just, oh yeah, we proved that, and it became obvious and accepted, and everybody understood that the world was flat. And these freaking morons had to just ruin it for me. I can't use it as an example anymore.
They ruin everything. They ruin everything.
Flat Earthers ruin everything.
But let me
even this interview. They have already ruined this interview.
It's why we can't have nice things.
God,
fuck you, Flat Earthers.
Let me attempt to actually introduce somewhat properly our guest for those. I don't know how you cannot know, but if you don't know who Mr. Kokesh is, he's an American activist and talk radio host of Adam versus the Man and author of the book Freedom. He is also now I had to scratch out president. He is the Libertarian candidate for Senate, the U.S. Senate in Arizona for 2018. Welcome, Mr. Kokesh.
Thank you very much.
So, I don't know where after that. I don't know how we can top that beginning. That was literally the greatest, most high energy opening to a show that we've done. I think we can just close it off right here. Thanks you, Adam Kokesh, for this was.
He said he's not going to do it for 20 minutes. It couldn't be entertaining, but the first 20, bravo.
Read my book, and it's done. This is done. Oh, love it. Well, let me. If you're like, hey, what's the next most important thing we can talk about? It's this book that shows how to create a better world by dissolving government entirely. This was what I did when I was in jail, or at least I started writing this when I was in jail for civil disobedience in 2013. And people sent me all these great books about freedom, and I decided that I would be the very best ripoff artist the freedom movement has ever known. And I took all the best ideas and none of the bad ones and condensed it into one easy to read 100-page, the ultimate red pill right here, the quickest way to go from zero to I get it. We've got, we're about to deliver 205,000 copies to New Orleans in a couple months. We've got over 50,000 copies in print, 3 million downloads. It's been a great success. The best criticism I've ever heard of this book is, well, it was kind of boring, but I'd give it to someone who's never heard of those ideas. Yeah, that's the point. It's easy to understand. It's an 8th grade reading level, common language, short sections. They're no more than a couple pages each, which means you could read this very easily on the toilet in just like a couple months without even thinking about it. And when you come out of it, your statism will be cured. You will no longer feel the need to turn to this authority called government. You will, and what you get out of this is not just, and this is not just me and my book. This is the message of freedom, the understanding of freedom inherently is that it gives you a true sense of personal freedom that changes how you relate to other people and changes the way you walk through the world and changes the way that you relate to authority. But I think most importantly, changes the way you relate to yourself when you realize that emotional freedom is part of freedom too. Having the freedom of true self-ownership means claiming that dominion over your mind. And all too often we let other people, politicians, propagandists, mainstream media, flat earthers inject their bullshit and take over the conversation and being free. So that's it. That's why we have to kill all the flat earthers. I say, we'll dig a big hole, we'll throw them in.
They don't pose. How do you can't kill them if they're posed?
We'll get them. We'll do it voluntarily. We'll get them to bet on whether the Earth is flat or round, and if they lose, they go in a hole and they end up in the center of the Earth. So, like, if they tell us
a round hole,
that you're right, exactly. They tell us that the Earth, and by the way, the Flat Earth Society has members all around the globe, so don't forget it. There's a lot of them. But if they say that the Earth is only like a mile deep, we drill a hole and we say, look, if we go a mile and a half. And we haven't gone through the Earth yet. Will you jump down there and tell us what's at the bottom? And then when they'll go like, oh my gosh, we can prove this theory now. We just need to dig a few more feet. And we'll come out the other side. And when they're all down there, we'll just
we've actually gone about 7.5 miles deep in a borehole.
I'm pretty sure. Adam,
you're literally like that big. But
whoever your opponents are going to use that clip right there against you. that you want
But I
to.
want
Flat
to kill
earther.
flat Earth.
Yeah, that you
Well,
wanna
yeah,
kill
but he
flat
doesn't,
earthers.
dude. He doesn't believe flat earthers exist, so he's not really advocating for the death
Exactly.
of anybody. So
Ding,
Well,
ding, ding.
I can hear it now.
I got you, brother.
I'm
I
Jason, and
understand.
I approve this
I'm there.
message.
I
So
also want free. I'm like, I'm a big fan of Vermin Supreme. And he was a parody presidential candidate, but he made some really good points. And one of his ideas that he came up with was free ponies for everybody. And so I will say there is, I really like the idea, but I don't think it goes far enough. So there is one big government program I'll support, and this is what they're really going to use against me, because if you hear Adam Kokesh say I support a big government program, it's going to be like destroying my credibility. But free unicorns.
How
Everybody
sign me up.
How about coupons for hookers?
Sign me up.
I think that's a good platform.
No,
You can get, like,
unicorns win hands down on that.
Why would you rather have a unicorn rather than a discount for a hooker?
I don't need a discount for a hooker.
I do. I mean,
So that, by the way, Adam, that was the greatest sales pitch for a book I've ever heard in my life. Anybody that can come on here and say, this is one you can read while you take a shit and you'll come out smarter about politics, that's a winner right there.
read
But,
it on the John.
Let's start at the beginning of how you kind of came to the forefront here when you were arrested and that whole thing kind of happened. Can you walk us through what happened for people who may not know and how that kind of put you on the forefront of where you are now?
Well, when you say when you got arrested,
Which time?
yeah, you're gonna have to be a lot more specific than that.
The first one, I remember watching you several years ago where you did a Fox News interview from your jail cell. You remember that?
Yeah, that was for the shotgun, for loading a shotgun in Freedom, the ironically named Freedom Plaza, 2 blocks away from the White House in Washington, D.C. And that was actually not, well, no, it's probably my most, no, it's hard to say. I mean, I have a few, like, high profile arrests that are sort of.
Pick your favorite.
I mean, my favorite is still dancing at the Jefferson Monument, Jefferson Memorial. There's,
Quite a few people got arrested for that, didn't they?
well, there were 5 of us that day, and there's something just beautifully elegant about what we set out to do with that. And if I may give a little backstory for those who don't know,
sure.
At the Jefferson Monument in Washington, D.C., in about 2008, there was a group of libertarians who decided to do a flash mob to celebrate Thomas Jefferson's birthday, the great champion of freedom of speech, no less, by going to have a silent dance party that is headphones in. They show up at midnight, the start of Thomas Jefferson's birthday, at the Jefferson Monument, where it says, like, just carved in stone all over this just beautiful marble, testimony to freedom, right? Things about the First Amendment, and the Declaration, and like other great quotes from Thomas Jefferson about freedom of speech. And I only found this out after this happened, but Thomas Jefferson was actually known for a while as the dancing president. I mean, like, the layers of irony just like keep building and building and building. Like, you want to make jokes about rolling over and spinning in the grave. I mean, it just, like, it doesn't even come close to just the absurdity of this. But so as these guys were they were dancing and they were asked to leave. They were asked to leave by United States Park Police. And by the way, of most of my high-profile arrests, the raid on my home with the SWAT team when they broke down my door, threw a flashbang grenade at my dog, roughed me up, ransacked my home, that was United States Park Police. These are the dregs of the federal law enforcement barrel, FBI Academy rejects. These are like, and of all the federal agencies for me, like, former Marine to have a vendetta with, I get the United States Park Police. Like, it's embarrassing, but I had enough.
But they took you down pretty hard, dude.
Well, hold on, we'll get to that. But that was, see, I have embarrassed them, like, many times in different ways, in different layers, you know, doing my own kind of First Amendment audits. And by the way, I want to say there's something about James Freeman, who does the First Amendment audits. You mentioned earlier, you know, you met him, he's a really nice guy. And his videos are, they're not, he is not confrontational in his demeanor, in his approach, but they are inherently, like, at their premise, confrontational, right?
Yeah.
We are confronting the state that we suspect to not be respectful of the First Amendment. And you said it was like a surprise, like, yeah, it turns out he's a really nice guy. And it's funny because people see me, like, they know me from those videos where I go and, you know, I'll you know, I confront cops, or
TSA is my favorite. That one where you had that interaction at the airport where they followed you around the airport for like half an hour. And then you went back to the guy at the desk, and he was sitting there, and you were like, hey, I need your supervisor. You better get out my face. I'm not about to talk to you right now. I am the supervisor.
Are you on the no-fly list now? I mean, they say they just tell you can't fly you now, or are you still able to?
No, I don't know. Like, I get recognized. It's been a while since I've done that. Like, I've
searched more than the average person going through TSA.
Well, I mean, when they pull your butt cheeks apart and they get the lube on and
well, I'm jealous. That's never happened to me.
Yeah,
I'm jealous now.
That's Saturday Night Style.
That has never happened to me, and I'm jealous right now.
Well, that's when you know it's not a random search. You know, that's
no, that's routine. We have it happen all the time. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like to fly.
If there's any TSA people
it's
watching,
the only action I get.
I welcome that full.
It's really bad when they use the mag light flashlight.
And I come through your line. I
usually offer to buy them dinner after they get done frisking me.
The full service. Well,
get up all in there and shit. Oh yeah, you got anything help?
Man.
You don't think that like I agree. Like, I agree that like when James and like News Now Patrick or those guys go out and do the First Amendment audits, that they have the total right to do that. I think that sometimes there are situations where it seems like they're answering in ways to provoke a reaction, I guess, instead of looking to see if they'll actually respect their right. Sometimes they're justified in doing it, but sometimes I think it's provoking in nature from the start. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and that's that's setting up my point here perfectly, Kyle. Because, excuse me,
you're
welcome.
My point was that that the guys who are naturally like that, people who are inherently assholes, like, who have no problem just walking up to strangers on the street and getting in their face and saying, "You're wrong, and let me tell you why you're wrong." You know, like, those guys are not activists. They're just assholes. Yeah, you know, like, those guys get drunk, you know, or go to bars, get drunk, start fights. Like, those are the guys who get in drunk driving accidents, you know, who go, you know, yell at their kids at Little League games, you know, who cut in front of you at line in the DMV. Like, those people are not, like, we have this weird psychological thing where, you know, we confuse what an alpha male looks like because we don't really have any good examples in society today. Like, just a real, you know, regular, solid alpha male dude who says, "I know what's up. I can take charge. I know what's going on here. I got my shit together." They don't put people like that up as examples because they don't want you to be like that. Trump is a different version of that, though. See, Trump does a lot of stuff that's based in insecurity. Trump does a lot of stuff that is not coming from a place of self-centeredness and love and respect and true leadership. Now, I don't get me wrong. And of course, you're never going to hear me support Trump, you know, in general politically, because he's a raging statist. He supports a lot of just actual violent government policy, and I can appreciate the good things he does, and I really appreciate his talent.
What good things? Hold on, I have to challenge you on that, which I have not been made aware of these good things.
Okay, well, one thing I will say, one thing that came out of his campaign is the fundamentally changing the relationship with the mainstream media for the United States. I think that was a good thing, and I don't think he really I don't think he fully deserves credit for that. I think he was kind of riding a wave. You know, it was really people like us who do produce independent media. I mean, the heavy hitters in this category are Alex Jones and the Young Turks, and there are many others out there who challenge the mainstream media narrative. But I think Trump picked the right wave. He drove that home. He did successfully fundamentally change America's relationship with the media. He has really helped America get beyond respectability politics. We have a group in the Libertarian Party called the Audacious Caucus, and their primary goal is to I don't know how they say it, not get rid of, but
abolish,
disempower or make irrelevant this idea of respectability politics. Like, I'm wearing a suit, therefore you should listen to me and put me in charge, and I get to decide who to drop these nuclear bombs on. No, it's silly. And I understand humanity will never get over the visual, like I see an alpha male, he looks like an alpha male, I'm that triggers something, I'm going to follow that, and there's always going to be some I got to look like I know what I'm doing because I'm trying to be in charge of some shit here. But in that sense, Donald Trump, he's done a good job of, I think, taking politics down a peg. I think in terms of international affairs, the optimist in me wants to say that he genuinely represents a pull towards peace. I will reserve judgment, until the end of his 4 years or less. That he gets in the White House, hopefully not 8, but not if I have anything to say about it. But no, I think that he's the thing about the president. The Bill Cooper analogy of the president, right? The day you get elected, they bring you into a room full of cigar smoke, and a projector screen comes down, and the light comes on, and it shows you a picture or a little clip of the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. And then the lights come on and they say, any questions? And the only question you're allowed is, what's my agenda? And I think that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but the president is a power broker. They really do have, and they decide which strings are attached to them, to pull them to the top, but they're still, they're still in that sense kind of a puppet. They're not a puppet in the sense that string pullers have all that control. The president gets to be a power broker and decide, what strings are attached, and can kind of manipulate those strings to some degree. And one of those strings is, the vote, the public opinion. And it's not the strongest string by far, but it does have, it does have obviously significant relevance here. And Donald Trump is obviously susceptible to the influence of the military-industrial complex and the deep state.
Agreed. How would you, though, like you said earlier, that you want that if you were voted as president, that you would go in and start to dismantle that office?
Maybe from day one. No. So this is very.
How would you do that if they showed you the JFK video, though? Like, how would you? Let's say that's true.
Hold on. That it's funny because I'll just finish the point and then it'll explain that exactly. The point with Donald Trump is that the positive change that he had is not so much from, oh, look, I'm accidentally doing this thing. But I'm Jewish, by the way. Don't get the wrong idea.
Mazel tov.
But yeah, I'm supposed to, can I do like the 3 parentheses? Is there like, I need a gang, the 3 parentheses? A lot of times people did I just invent a new gang sign?
Well, 33.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but go on.
No, when they do the parentheses, they do the echoes, triple parentheses around Jewish names. Look, there's my, I'm wearing triple parentheses.
Wait a minute. You can't tell the Gentiles this. Okay. This was super secret.
That's not a thing.
We're not allowed to talk about this stuff. Okay.
It's the new Jewish gang sign. That's
oh my God.
They call
that is so Jewish.
They call this
a Jewish.
They call this a Shannon for the Goyim. Ever heard that term? It's Jewish for basically doing something in front of the Gentile that the Jews shouldn't do. You're giving away top secret Jewish information here. They will
go eat some gefilte fish, Steve. Go eat some gefilte fish.
This nasty. Well, what kind of Jew you think I am?
Well, give me my foreskin back and kick me out of the tribe then. Fine. All right. So, but to the point here about Donald Trump, Donald Trump's effect on America was not so much, it's never going to be after you're elected. It's the conversation, the referendum that happens in the election itself. So anytime someone introduces me as a presidential candidate, I have to say, whoa. You have to be some kind of psychopath to say, I want to be president of the United States. I want to be in charge of this giant violent monopoly, and I want to force my will on the entire country. Literally, I'm not being figurative. You literally have to be insane at some level to want to be president of the United States. I am going to be resigning on day one. As much as we say that I am running for president, and as much as I am technically running for president, although not now with my campaign suspended to run for Senate in Arizona, I am actually turning the presidential election into a referendum on whether or not the federal government should be allowed to exist at all. So the election now is where the change comes from. And the American people are not going to get to vote for Adam Kokesh for president. They're going to have a real choice, and it's you can vote for a Republican schmuck or a Democrat schmuck or this exact plan. And when I say this exact plan, what I mean is we will have the executive order laid out in as much detail as we possibly can in advance on the website, so the American people will know exactly what they are voting for. So I go in, I'm going to swear in, I'm going to walk down to the White House, and we haven't figured out the legal details. I might have to do 2 signatures. I might have to do, because we're going to pardon everybody who's in federal prison for victimless crimes, and then sign the executive order where the federal government is declared bankrupt. It is declared of no authority. It is now a custodial institution for the purposes of carrying out this dissolution that leaves us with 50 independent states, 5 autonomous territories, and up to 562 sovereign native nations. So I don't know. You guys want to talk about like the future of freedom and America leading humanity forward?
I have so many questions, Adam. I have so many questions. So let's start with this. Okay, so you're going to essentially blow up the government. And
no. It's a peaceful, orderly, responsible dissolution.
But what takes that place? Like when you dissolve the government, what's going to navigate what we have going now? Right.
So
you want it to go back to the states. The states have their own autonomous.
Yeah. So I mean, you want me to give you like a mechanical breakdown of the the process? I mean, it's really not that complicated. Every single federal agency either gets dissolved, and that's the best answer. Like it just goes away. I mean, do you want 50 IRSs? No, we don't need that. We just get rid of the IRS. Department of Education does not run a single school, does not educate a single child. You just get rid of it and liquidate the assets. Something like the Department of Transportation, right, gets localized to all the 50 states. We have 50 state departments of transportation already. It's not that complicated to say, okay, we are signing over the personnel, the facilities, the equipment in the state to the State Department of Transportation. Congratulations, you own this now. And then the third option is to be spun off as public trusts or independent institutions. And the 2 big examples for that are the VA and Social Security Administration. With the VA, you look at our veterans issue today, we have 20 veterans committing suicide a day in this country, and Republicans and Democrats don't seem to give a damn about that. The Libertarian Party is the only one with the solution to this problem. The main one is, hey, if you want to say that we fought for your freedom, you better damn well believe that we have the freedom to medicate however we see fit. That you want to say that I don't have the right to put what I want in my body to treat PTSD when I get home, that I got to make myself a criminal. You're part of the. If you want to try to put that on veterans and say no, now that you fought for our freedom and now that you put your life on the line, now you have to come home and be obedient and take the drugs that we tell you. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear stories of guys, in situations where they've been treating themselves with marijuana, and they get a job, or they move to another state, or state law changes or something like that, and now they're like, well, now I got to turn to opioids, and they're not as good, and it's like, anyway.
Totally agree on that.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you this, because it kind of like it definitely. What you're saying though, how are you going to get around the whole thing with the Constitution? Because the Constitution has certain things that are delegated.
Hold on. I'll get to that. Okay, yeah. Let me finish the mechanics, because there's only There's a couple more big parts here, and I'll come to that.
The Constitution's a big part.
Who needs it?
You can't kind of
right, and that's what, and they told the founders the same thing about the Magna Carta, but that's okay. We don't have to, just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it's not incredibly stupid. So,
touché.
The VA end the drug war. Obviously, when we declare the federal government of no authority, all federal laws are unenforceable. So the drug war is done, like across the board. It only whatever the states independently are able to enforce or want to do themselves. The thing is, then you give the VA to the veterans. We don't have to abolish the VA. I don't have a problem with the VA existing. Most Americans don't. I mean, I would argue probably 95+% don't have a problem with the existence of the VA. A lot of us, though, have a problem with it being funded by tax dollars. So what do we do about that? We take the VA, we give it to the veterans. Every single veteran in America gets one ownership voting share. We can do this digitally. We can do it on blockchain. There's no excuse to give the VA to politicians and bureaucrats who are willing to kill veterans on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies. That comes to an end. You give the VA to veterans and the drug war. I guarantee you don't have 20 veteran suicides a day. Then as a fiduciary agent here, as the bankruptcy agent of the United States federal government, my responsibility is to pay back the creditors of the American federal government. And it's not the foreign banks and foreign governments and foreign corporations who own the paper debt, the national debt, which is bullshit. It's illegitimate. It's intergenerational child abuse to force your children to pay for something that they never had a say in. So we are writing that debt off, and we take Social Security and we spin it off as a private trust, or excuse me, a public trust, technically a private institution. So it's no longer government. And you give it an endowment with whatever is left when you're done with the liquidation of the federal government. It's probably going to be enough to last for decades, more than long enough for society to come up with something entirely better without government, but certainly long enough for the states to come up with something better. So to your question about the Constitution, it was a really important one. Because a lot of people have asked me, Adam, how are you going to do this? The president doesn't have the constitutional authority to do this. Is this a constitutional plan or not? And I say, absolutely not. This is definitely not constitutional. That's kind of the point. We are invoking the higher authority called the Declaration of Independence, which says that we have not only a right but a duty to alter and abolish systems of government that no longer serve us. And if the American people make their will clear enough through the election process, through a presidential election, and overwhelmingly say, no, we are not going to allow the federal government to continue to exist any longer, no asshole in a suit in Washington, D.C. is going to stand in our way. You think we win this election on this platform, and then somebody in the Supreme Court, some guy in a black robe who thinks he's better than you is going to stand up and say, well, hold on a second, the Constitution is, it doesn't matter. But the Constitution
isn't that exactly what they do? I mean, that's why we have 3 different compartments of our government, such that we have a check and balance system. So not
why wait, hold on. Why do you think that? Hold on. Why do you think we have 3 different branches of government?
So not one particular branch becomes overpowered. So you have.
Right. And this is why politicians love you, and the police are looking out for you. And every war that America has ever fought has been glorious. And the Constitution is a wonderful document that defends your freedom. No, don't be absurd. I mean, the Constitution is an anti-freedom document, both practically and historically. That is, as Lysander Spooner said, has either authorized our current tyranny or entirely failed to prevent it. In either way is unfit to exist, but historically is a step backwards from the Articles of Confederation that we had before. The 3 branches of power is an excuse to create 3 branches of power to exercise power over you, to take advantage of you, to exploit you. You know you're being lied to, and you know it's for a reason. It's not for fun. These aren't just like compulsive liars. They're psychopaths, but they're doing it to take advantage of you. So no, even the Bill of Rights was an excuse to create the authority of the Constitution that gave us the tyranny that we have today, which was always its intent.
So essentially, the governors of each state would become the power source, or the highest you could go. Would you keep them?
I would definitely not call them the power source. The power source is the individual. States don't have rights. Only individuals have rights.
They would be the highest. You couldn't go past the governor, right?
Right. And you're correct in that sense, that they would then be the sovereigns of those states, or the highest political authority in those states. However, this is part of a broader strategy of localization, of pushing government down as local as possible. And the best thing about this is that this is the everybody gets what they want strategy. I mean, do you want a constitution? You can have it. You just can't force it on anybody else. So the only way we get to a world where you get to do what you want in your community is when it's localized down to the community level. So getting rid of the federal government is just the first step. But and by the way, in terms of the amount of government here, in terms of personnel, we're only talking about getting rid of the 3 million out of 22 million people who work for government at all levels off the top. This layer of disgusting, wasteful, counterproductive fat off the top of government. That's it. And what you end up with is a society that is so much more free, so much more prosperous, so much safer without the federal government, that there's going to be a race among the states to localize down to the county level. You get down to the county level, you're going to see some city states, you're going to see some places break off. But if the government says you own property and you don't have the right to be free on your own land, like I am not quite here in Arizona, if you don't have the ability to say, you know what, I'm breaking off from this government, I want to opt out, I just want to be sovereign on my own land, then you're not free. Then you live under a tyrannical government that believes it owns you, that acts like it owns you. So I wouldn't be promoting the strategy if I didn't see it happening already, if this wasn't the natural trend. But you look all around the world, the Scottish vote, Brexit, Catalonia, the 51st State Project in Colorado, New Hampshire, Vermont, Texas, California wants to split off, and I'd be okay with that too. Jefferson State, Alaska, Hawaii,
I vote for Florida to go ahead and break away. I'd be okay with
Florida too.
Do you think it's realistic for people to be able to process jumping over to a system like that? Like, do you think that is something that, as a whole, the country would go for? Like, what realistically are the chances that people would just abandon the system that they're used to now for such an extreme change?
Well, I got to rephrase that question a little bit, I think, to put it in proper perspective. That's like, saying there's someone who's got like a tumor growing off the side of their head, and it's this massive cancerous growth, and it's like it's dripping pus and it's bleeding, and it's funny. I have a friend who just had a tumor removed from the side of his head. He said like he would take showers and chunks of it would drop off. It's like this giant tumor on the side of your head. It's just disgusting. Like you can't even walk around. You can't go on dates. You can't even walk. Like, it's embarrassing to show your kids around town. They're like, oh shit, look at that thing on the side.
Like Elephant Man.
And you say, look, we're gonna take you to a doctor who specializes in this kind of thing, and he's just gonna cut it off, and you're gonna be fine. He's gonna just plastic surgery. It's gonna look like nothing ever happened. And you go, well, I don't know. Do you think that person would really want that? I mean, it's such a radical change in their lifestyle.
How
would they ever go for that
at all?
But Adam, it's not the people. The problem that I foresee is that, again, an executive order doesn't do what you think it's going to do, right? I mean, that's like saying I'm going to change. I'm going to go from a democratic republic, and I want to form a monarchy. I want to be a king. Executive order. But that's not that. How is that ever going to fly in? We have an existing government. That's a fact, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We have an existing government. The executive orders for the presidency only has a certain amount of limitations of what they can do. They can't change fundamental things by an executive order for the Constitution.
Yeah, how would you go about enacting that change?
Yeah, how would you actually enact it, what you're trying to do? Because it's the same thing by saying, I want to change this to a monarchy.
Hold on a second.
King Adam.
Hold on a second. Your question seems to be premised, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your question seems to be premised on this ridiculous notion that every single executive order every president has ever signed has been perfectly constitutional, and that the Constitution, not what the enforcement class for the American people
not at all.
Has been the limit on presidential power.
I'm not, and I would never say that. But the executive order can do some amazing things, but you still have oversight.
How do you enforce it?
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
The American people have some amazing power. We are the ones who are really in charge. Alexis de Tocqueville was right. 1831, democracy in America. In a democracy, people will get the government they deserve. That's true with every form of government. Every existing power structure relies on the consent of the governed. We withdraw that consent, and none of their excuses for maintaining the current power structure matter.
Okay, here's my question. Here's let me ask it to you this way though. Okay, so let's say that you win, right? And you win on this platform, and you go in and you sign your executive order. Okay, you also have Congress, who is still at this point. It's still lawful. They're still, in their order.
No,
and the
no. As soon as I sign this executive order, Congress.
I know that you say that, but how do you enforce that?
Yeah, exactly.
What keeps Congress from going? Okay, we can declare what goes on and instructing the military to remove you.
Yeah, they're going to say
hold on. You forgot the premise of this question. You just won. Okay, that means we won with a majority, overwhelming.
Right.
So you think some congressman is good, like whose people in his district, elected him, if at all, like to support this platform, and he goes, hold on. Your question. Okay. Would a congressman oppose this?
Have you asked any?
First of all, they don't have the authority.
Have you asked any congressman?
Oh man.
Have you any congressman you've ran this by where they all said this is a great plan?
But here's the thing, though, Steve.
No, we need to replace practically all of them. That's fine.
But think of Obamacare, though, Adam. Think of
Obama. Hold on. No. Your question.
I'm going to clarify my question.
Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question about a member of Congress.
Okay, Adam.
Let me answer this.
Okay.
So, for you to say a member of Congress might, like, we just elected 2 years ago, right? We elected a Congress, we elected a president, and they took office, and they did some version of what we expected them to do, right? So if Donald Trump took office and has, the public mandate to go and do what he's doing, and some member of Congress stands up and says, no, I don't think we should have a president at all. Let's get rid of the president. The people in their district are going to say, screw you. What are you talking about? We elected you to support the Constitution. We elected you to carry out this general agenda. So they're going to go along with what they were elected on because that's going to reflect the will of the people. So
okay, well, let me ask you. Let me tell you this. Okay, so think of Obama, right? When he ran on the promise to deliver the Affordable Care Act, right? Mm-hmm. He had to. It wasn't just because we voted Obama in, and this is what he wanted to do. As soon as he got elected, the Affordable Care Act became the law of the land. You still had to battle that in Congress, even though people voted for him for that fact. So just because people voted for you thinking that you would go in and dissolve the government, it doesn't mean it automatically happens when you win the election.
Yeah, I mean, you think that Trump got elected on his mandates, but you know what? Everything Trump supposedly did, he said he was going to do in the first. Wait! In the first 180 days of all the things that he said he was going to do you know how many of those he actually accomplished? Zero.
Yeah.
So how would you work with that?
How would I work with what? I mean, this idea that Trump was running on some kind of
that you really just because people vote you in on the platform that you have.
Trump's the general mandate of the government that we elected in 2016 was keep this thing going, keep the system going.
Right.
So they're keeping the system going. I'm saying let's elect new leadership in this country that says no, let's change the system this way, exactly like this.
Yeah, but every president does that, and they still have to battle what the change that they want to bring in. The example is like the Affordable Care Act. People voted for Obama because they wanted to see nationalized health care. It wasn't just because Obama won.
We have never had a presidential candidate win on the platform of nobody should be president. That's never happened before.
I know that, but if it did happen, what I'm saying is there are still people in this country who would have voted like hell no to that aspect, and their voice would still have to somehow be taken into effect. When that's where the Congress would come in and be your biggest problem, because they would they're
the minority. If you want
we're not going anywhere.
And how would you?
If you want a president, you can have one in your own state. You can't.
How would you get the delegates to vote for you? I mean, let's say there was a referendum where the people voted for you. There was a mandate for you to do what your plan is. you still have the delegates. They can basically say, you know what? Nah, Adam's plan not going to work, and they're not going to vote.
Right, hold on. You guys,
So
you guys want to play this sovereign citizen technicalitarian, argue the
the electoral college is
no,
not a technicality. Electoral college is a huge factor here.
No, what you're trying to do is
prevent something like this
on a technical basis and say, well, technically, legally, well, what do you think the American founder said when King George said, well, no, you can't do that. That's a violation of the Magna Carta. They said, fuck you.
We're trying to understand your plan in how it will work, like in real. Because let's say that you did actually win. We're honestly asking you where it would go from that first day, because you know that the government's not just gonna, especially Congress, isn't just gonna roll over and say, yeah, you can get rid of our jobs.
No, hold on, they will. That's the thing, is they will have to in order for us to win.
How does that? Wait, why would that happen?
In order for us to win the presidency with this platform, we will have to have already won a majority of Congress.
Adam, people don't vote for the president. They vote for electorates to go to the from the electoral college. They go and they cast their votes.
Right. No, I'm aware of this.
Okay, so it's a two system. They're set up to be a two system like that. So it's not a direct representation from the people. So
Yeah,
you're saying the people are going to.
Let me ask you. Hold on. Let me ask you.
Delegates. The delegates have to be the ones who will elect you.
No. But let me ask you a better question. Let's say we win with this, as you suggest, and we're going to have to win with an overwhelming majority. We're not going to win with like 34% to the old party's 33.
Why?
Right.
It's going to have to be.
Again, you're dealing with
he wants an overall mandate for
but the mandate really doesn't matter. If you win the presidency, you have to have enough electoral votes. That's how you win.
I think the mandate matters for sure.
You can't do anything until you get that electoral number, that magic number. There's nothing until
the mandate still wins. But anyway, go ahead with your question, Adam.
So the Electoral College is part of the process, but it's really irrelevant in this because we're not going to win with 34 to 33 to 33. If that's the actual vote, they will cheat and we will lose. We are going to have to win with an overwhelming majority. The way this is most likely going to happen is we get to plant the flag on this idea as a libertarian nominee in 2020. And we're probably going to get somewhere between 10 and 15% of the vote. But it's enough that every time the federal government screws up between then and 24, we get to say, hey, if you had voted for us, that agency wouldn't even exist right now. I think we get to that tipping point for the 24 election. And so as to the challenge of the Electoral College, the reason that it doesn't matter is that the American people will have overwhelmingly rejected this, that there will have been enough of a paradigm shift that we say, no, we're not going to put up with this. So let me put the question back to you. Let's say that we win and we have 60+% of the vote in 2024, and someone stands up in Congress and says, no, we need a federal government. We need to, and I go in and I sign my executive order and we start dissolving the federal government, and this agency goes this way and that agency goes that way. What's going to happen to that member of Congress?
But in order to get where you have to be, the Electoral College is what does it, though, right? So this is where maybe I'm having an epistemic confusion here, because you're putting the horse before the cart here.
No, hold on. Let me take a step back in. Hold on. Let's say we win and it's counted and it's clear, overwhelming. We have 60+% of the vote.
You have 100%. It doesn't matter. Right.
No. And then the Electoral College electors go in to the Congress, because that's how they do it, and they say, you know what? We're not going to do this. We're just gonna, we're gonna vote for whoever we want and screw the American people. What's gonna happen to them?
Well, the government's famous for screwing the American people. That wouldn't be a first.
Is your but you're running for the Libertarian Party? Are there is the party 100% behind you in this plan, or are there split factions of the Libertarian Party that you're gonna have to kind of square with on this?
Well, the Libertarian Party is very clearly united on the core principle. And when you join the Libertarian Party, you have to check a box on the form that says, I oppose the use of force to achieve political or social goals. So fundamentally, we all oppose the unethical nature of government, the coercive nature of government. Some of us say we can make government reformed in certain ways and essentially get to a voluntary society that way. Some of us prefer the strategy of localization. And really, the libertarian message shouldn't be this, that, or the other about government, because under libertarian philosophy, you can have as much government as you want, as long as it's voluntary. So we get government down to the community level. Again, it's the everybody gets what they want strategy. There's still this is a subject that I kind of reintroduce. I don't want to claim that it's original, but as a broader political strategy a few years ago, partly with the book Freedom and with the national tours that I've done around this campaign. And more people are starting to embrace this approach because it's a lot easier. It's a lot friendlier. I don't have to argue with you. Should government do this? Should government do that? I don't care. As long as you have that for your community, for your government, and you don't force it on anybody, you do whatever you want. And that is what people are united on. But the way the Libertarian presidential nominee and vice presidential nominee is selected is at the biannual the conventions are biannual. Obviously, the presidential nominations are every 4 years. So in 2020, there will be about 1,000 delegates gathering in Austin, Texas, to decide who the nominees are going to be. And we've been doing a really good job, my team, bringing people into the Libertarian Party who care about a practical message that is also principled and philosophically consistent. And we, with this platform specifically, there have been some other less serious campaigns that have brought forth similar ideas, but in terms of actually putting this together as a serious, comprehensive plan with a realistic path to victory, this is the first campaign the Libertarian Party has had like this.
What do you think of Gary Johnson?
Gary Johnson.
Well, I like Gary Johnson. I consider him a personal friend. We're both in different ways from New Mexico, and I have a lot of respect. What's that?
I actually liked him.
Well, as a candidate, there were a lot of positives, a lot of minuses, but I think for what he represented for the party, which was a losing strategy, I really can't underscore this enough. And this goes back to my own personal development and exposure to the message, because I first learned of libertarianism through the Libertarian Party and got a watered down version of the message. I mean, the message of freedom is about the non-aggression principle and self-ownership and ethics and respect and love, ultimately, for yourself and your fellow human beings. And when you try to translate that into a set of political positions, you lose that. And you go, well, we're socially liberal and we're fiscally conservative. We're the best of both worlds. Well, the American people go, you mean both shit worlds that we don't want anything to do with? The American people are looking, the winning coalition for the Libertarian Party and for this presidential campaign is not going to come from Republicans and Democrats. If you look at the American 100%, electoral potential of eligible voters, only about 60% vote consistently in presidential campaigns. You go to midterms and local, it's closer to 30%. That means it's only 30% of eligible voters who are like, we got to vote like our lives depend on it. Red team go, blue team go. The other 30% who are voting presidential elections are voting reluctantly. They know it's generally a waste of time, where they come in, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I liked Obama, I liked Romney, whatever. But they're not like, they're not party people. Then there's the 40% who consistently never vote, and most of them know that it's bullshit. They know that it's a waste of their time. Some of them are apathetic. I think that's not the majority. But who are the Democrats and Republicans of the public base? You're talking 15% and 15%. The winning coalition for libertarians is the other 70%. And we can get most of those together. If we can get half of that together, that's 35 versus 15 versus 15. Overwhelming majority, we win. So that in the reason that was important to me was because I still enlisted in the military. Right. I still volunteered to go to Iraq. I still did some horrific things on behalf of the United States federal government. And most people can see through that. And I think Gary Johnson is kind of a unique individual. He's been asked what he thought about the non-aggression principle. He said, it just goes over my head. And it's like, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. How is that too complicated? Like ethics, But I genuinely think he is a good dude. Like, we proved that as governor. He wanted to go out and he vetoed more bills possibly than all other governors combined during the time he was in office. That is a huge testament to his integrity. But what he represents is a terrible losing strategy for the Libertarian Party, where we hide behind someone who's not really one of us, who doesn't really represent the message.
I love his views on marijuana. When he did that interview with Samantha Bee, I thought that was epic.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that he's for school vouchers, and I'm not a big fan of vouchers. I mean, I one of these days we'll have to hear argumentation on it, but he's for legalization of cannabis, which is fine. I think that every state should.
Absolutely.
But school vouchers, I still have an issue with because
it's a government program.
Yeah, and it's an ineffective program. And unfortunately, schooling, they don't get the proper education as it is, and so vouchers. I don't think they work that well.
Well, and there's another issue, or one that I wanted to, not that I don't think we could go anymore. Well, maybe we could. Let me just throw it out there. You consider tax as theft, correct?
No, I know that taxation is theft because words have meanings.
But even though it's constitutional, in the Constitution that they can levy taxes. What makes it illegal? I mean, theft is a legal term, obviously, right? What makes
theft is not as a legal term as a regular word, and it's really funny. You keep going back to the Constitution, like we
live under the Constitution.
Well, I'm more concerned about what to replace it with. Like,
hang on. As much as you may not like it, the fact is, America, the government we have, is predicated on the Constitution. That is a fact, right? I was in the military too. When we both been in the military, we both agreed to uphold the Constitution, right? I have my VA card as well, right? I mean, I agree with you on the VA, needs some work, but I got to tell you, they've been very good to me. But you can't just demolish the Constitution by fiat, by going in and saying, I'm going to do this. There's no longer a Constitution. That's not how the government has ever been set up that way. Yes, I have my VA card. So I'm a little.
And what would you replace it with? Like, how would you fund
Confederation? Go back to that or something?
How would you fund things?
It's like, what do you replace the tumor on the side of your head with? Nothing.
But how are you going to fund things that
what things? What thing? So what? So
infrastructure, schools, education,
highways.
Yeah, infrastructure.
People will pay for those things. Like, how did we pay for the internet?
So we have like a road subscription?
Yeah, you have to pay to, like, everything's a toll road?
Well, no, I mean, you pay a membership or a subscription, or maybe you pay a gas tax, or it's paid for by advertising.
Wouldn't that be the same thing as tax?
Hold on a second. We gotta like back up here, because a second ago the objection was, well, you can't get rid of taxes because it's in the Constitution. Well,
no, that's not what I said. What I said was when you use the term taxation is you said it was
yes. Well, it also is legally theft. It is.
But what makes when something is illegal means it's breaking some kind of law, right?
Right.
Whether it's an infraction, which would be like a code enforcement, or if it's something that is actually a criminal offense of some kind. What makes taxation under what statute makes it illegal?
Well, when you take something by force or by fraud, but there's no doesn't belong to you, but then that's theft.
When you're talking about deontological things, meaning to the rule of law, you have to say, okay, this is the rule of law that I am appealing to. So why is it that?
No, I'm appealing to reality. I'm not appealing to the rule of the false law of the Constitution or things written down on pieces of paper by men in fancy costumes. No, I'm talking about reality.
Okay, fine. Let's say we grant you that. What are you going to then use to fill that revenue gap when you're talking roads, education, everything that the state pays for? Are you talking about getting rid of like NASA and all that stuff too? Like space programs? Like, is each state going to have their own individual space?
How about NOAA
program? Like, yeah, those kind of things. Like, what's going to replace that revenue stream?
Okay, well, so I got to back up just a little bit to answer this question, so you guys don't like interrupt with what about this, but what about this, or this example, or that.
You make it hard though, Adam. You make it hard.
See, I told you I was going to piss you off. I'm sure someone's been bored.
Can we still be friends?
I got to tell you, I am not. No, I don't. I'm not. I'm confused. I'm straight up confused as fuck. Okay,
I'm
I'm
like
not
playing the-
upset.
I like playing the
really
game.
trying. Hang on, I'm really trying to get to the core of the questions, because it's you seem to take these very complicated things and distill them down to a simplistic level that just doesn't exist.
And
Like,
it's fun.
remember,
But it's
no.
fun.
See,
It's
you're
fun.
like one of the flat earthers.
No,
You're one of the flat earthers.
I'm actually a pragmatist.
I'm
actually,
it's so complicated.
brother, I'm on
It's
your
so
side.
complicated. No, it's
I am.
simple.
Look at. I'm the person.
Oh,
you
that
should
was-
be talking
that
to.
was
I am the
fantastic.
libertarian. I am the fiscally conservative,
That was
liberal person that libertarians I kind of go to. So I'm the one you should be.
Somebody timestamp that, please.
There's nothing about my questioning that has to do with like on the level of flat earth. These are legitimate concerns when you're running for a public position.
Can we still be friends after this, Adam? Because I really like you. I
Oh
think
yeah, we're going out for beer after this. Man. We're having shots, brother.
You're fun as hell, but
You're right next door to me in another state. Come
back up and answer that question though, because I think that's this is the biggest question that I had for you tonight. So
okay, so I got you guys got to give me some time here. Really,
Go
like
for it.
let me get into. There's two ways to answer this question, and the first one is in terms of the practical strategy that can unite left, right, and center against the common enemy of big centralized government. Is there anything that we need a bigger centralized authority for that we can't do better at the community level? And if your answer is national defense, then you're anti-American, because the American founders knew that we should oppose a standing army in every form, that we should have a militia-based defense, and you should be supporting the United Nations, having a global defense force if that's the way you want to go with it. So when you say, like, how do we pay for this? How do we pay for that? Ultimately, what I'm actually advocating is that the states will pay for it, then the counties, then the communities, and then you're going to see free market solutions displace government criminal enterprises.
So you're talking about privatization, and you're talking about literally. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, if you
hold on, let me go back, because you keep.
I can't even get a full sentence out. I've been interrupted every time I want to ask you a direct question.
Because you haven't let me finish answering the question about taxation.
Yeah,
this is really important. So that was the first answer. That was the first practical part of the answer, is that we localize government, and it really doesn't matter. And it gets down to the individual level. The same people are paying for stuff as are paying for it now. It's just,
how is that happening? How are the people paying for that? Who do they pay it to? How do you go out? People going, hey, I'm gonna go give you a couple bucks here and there. Just donate.
The state would still be paying
so there's still a state government that has.
So wait. For what?
How do they collect the tax?
It's still taxes.
Yeah. What do they? You don't have to call it taxes, but how are they getting the money from the privatization from the sector?
If you don't want to be confused anymore, stop interrupting with questions that I'm trying to answer. Okay, like if you really, it sounds like you're having too much fun being confused, and it's really frustrating.
Sometimes that's true.
So
go ahead, Adam.
Take as long as you need to answer. I'm still
okay.
I go for it.
But
there is, if you believe in peace, if you believe in freedom, if you believe in cooperation, if you understand that as a fundamental law of markets, of capitalism, that voluntary interactions, when people come together peacefully, that those interactions are always more conducive for human happiness than relationships when one person comes in and is forcing their will on the other person, then you can see that there's this ideal that we should be pursuing of a truly free market, of a non-violent society, of a coercion-free society where all relationships have no force, fraud, or coercion in any form. And when you understand that taxation is theft, that this is a government with an illegitimate claim to authority. They're claiming that they own everything in their territory, including you, your labor, the product of your labor. They are using violence against you to take something that doesn't belong to them. Now, there's one way that taxation is not theft. You could say that taxation is not theft if you are willing to say that government owns you, and therefore owns the product of your labor and owns everything that you own in subsidiary. I don't believe that. No, you own yourself. That's the premise of freedom. As a beautiful, independent human being, you own yourself. And no one can take that away, because that's part of being an independent consciousness in your own physical body. That's part of just observable reality of self-ownership, of immediate control. You own yourself. So when we say, look, who's going to pay for this without government, without this, without da-da-da-da, the question is, how are we going to pay for these things when we have nonviolent alternatives to the violent system that we have today? So you can look at every single thing, because like I could say, well, who's going to pay for the junkets to the Middle East and to tropical locations for members of Congress? And who's going to pay for the IRS to audit you? Well, nobody, because nobody wants that shit. That's the point. When you get to choose where your money goes, you get to decide what that money is spent on, as opposed to having someone decide it for you. When someone gets to decide it for you, as with government, well, they're going to spend it on stuff that's not in your best interest. So we're going to pay for every single thing. And if you want to go example by example, I can hypothesize and I can show you ways of possibilities, but that's trying to predict the future. The most important answer in libertarianism when it comes to economic predictions is, I don't know. Who's going to build the roads? People. I mean, I just built a road without government. It's not that complicated. It's called Ma Road. If you have a question for somebody and they say, well, who's going to build the roads? Hey, you tell them this guy's going to build the roads. Okay, it's not that complicated to pave a flat surface. But every single
I got to tell you.
Hold on. You're not answering the.
I got to tell you, Adam.
You're not answering the question. Adam.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
How are you going to pay for it? Like, isn't that still taxes? Isn't at the end of the day, if people are still paying for that, like even if you get it down to the county level, if they're still paying for those roads as part of their community, is that not still the same thing as taxes?
What's the difference?
Well, no. I mean, we might have flying cars by then. Like flying car technology might even make trucking obsolete. And then you go, who's going to build the road? Who cares? We're all flying through the air. If it wasn't,
I don't think you're answering these questions even remotely sensibly. To be honest with you, I'm being direct. These are
wait, who's going to pay? Okay, no, hold on. You said who's going to?
Let me ask. Well, hang on. You told me to hold on a million times. I've given you 20 minutes to ramble. And you didn't answer my question. So let me ask.
Who's going to pay for the roads?
People. No, that's not my question. No, that's not. But look hang on.
The earth is round. It is not the center.
Are you doing a psychic thing here? Because I guarantee you don't know what I'm going to ask you.
Gentlemen. Let us calm down real quick. Take a deep breath, everyone. And just remember that these are politics. And at the end of it, we can all still get along. Are we good? Now, Steve.
Fuck flat earthers.
Please ask your question. And then Adam, you will get all the time you need to answer it.
Okay, so here's okay. You're against taxation, okay? And if you want to go to the private sector and you want to have the public say, okay, we're going to be giving this out of pocket, okay? We're going to be giving this whatever, how to pay for the roads, pay for whatever needs to be done at the local level, okay? There has to be a way to collect that. There has to be an infrastructure by which to take the funds and apply them logistically where they have to go.
Okay.
That is not a private sector. That is what a state government and a local government does.
Just have a guy named Randy to fix the road.
Verizon does that. You have a point where you go and you pay.
That's not what Verizon does. Verizon is an internet communication thing. The Verizon does not logistically take funding from the individual person and apply it to whether you can use it for things such as like roads, because roads are.
No, it does. It creates a cell phone network that people can use if they're subscribers. What are you talking about?
You're comparing the internet to a road.
The same reality here, like when you say how are they going to collect money? Well, we have
so a private business will handle that.
Venmo, and we have credit cards. Well, they might be public institutions. They could be public trusts.
Okay, but how do they enforce? But a Verizon, I can opt out of Verizon, right? I'd say I don't need a cell phone. I don't want to pay for Verizon.
Sure.
What about the people that say, you know what? I don't want to pay for roads. Fuck that. I'm gonna travel anyways.
Cool.
Yeah. What if there's only one guy that wants a road?
Yeah. I mean, how do you enforce any of this stuff?
What do you mean? How do you don't drive? You don't want to drive on the roads?
I mean, I think you're missing the point here. Let's say Kyle and I, we want to take a road trip, but we were like, fuck this. We're not going to pay for how these roads got built. How do we, if we did, who do we give the money to?
Okay. So this is like, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin kind of a thing. No, it is, because you're asking who's going to do this in some hypothetical future where we don't know what technology is even going to be available. So let me step back.
We need roads and stuff. We need infrastructure. We need schooling.
Absolutely. So the question here's the thing.
That's fine.
People were debating
just
slavery.
Understand. But I think I have a rephrase. I understand that, but I have a rephrase of this question. You have a bunch of people.
We're going to go to
one guy that
wants
on this to actually pay for the roads. Yeah. What about those people who don't want to pay for the roads but use them anyway? How do you
Adam's too good to let
get
go
them
early.
to pay for the road? I don't know. Right, is not a. It's you're not going to be. That's fine.
Okay, I don't know. Now, here's the bigger point.
You know what though? That's a good answer. That's a good answer for better than trying to make up something.
So you guys keep interrupting. I can't even get to the ultimate point here. I mean, why was this not? We're talking about flat earthers and burying them in the center of the earth, and we can have a laugh. But as soon as I start explaining how taxation is theft and how
it's a passionate subject. It's a passionate subject.
You're interrupting.
I asked you. Wait, Adam. No,
triggered.
Adam.
A little bit. I'm
not at all. I'm actually very calm. Listen, Adam, you have not explained why taxation is illegal. I asked you what statute makes it illegal, right?
Because government is taking something that doesn't belong to them.
There has to be a statute. I think you have to quote. And by the way, the whole. I have to say this because I like philosophy. The whole dancing on the head of the pin, the angels, is actually what's called a reductio ad absurdum. It is actually a thing back when the Stoics were trying to come up with some a ridiculous type of question. That's what that was. My asking these kind of questions are not reductios. They're actually very straightforward questions dealing with anything, especially what you're trying to say of how things get done, how they get paid.
I've mentioned numerous possibilities to answer your question about who's going to build the roads. And you keep coming up with technical objections and objecting and interrupting with more things that don't even acknowledge what I've said. I don't think you're actually listening. I think
So who would pay for it?
Go ahead and make your point.
Yeah,
go ahead, Adam. Go ahead and make your point.
Who pay for it? Yeah.
Go ahead and make your point to that.
Because I don't think you've ever said actually.
I think we're all going to agree that we don't agree on the tax versus theft issue. We can move past that because none of us are going to agree on that, and there's no sense in beating a dead horse. But Adam, we're going to both be quiet now and let you take all the time that you need to answer that question as you feel fit and to get it all out there, and then we'll come in turn. But you let us know when you're finished. That way we're not interrupting you.
You sure? You sure? Because I might mention flat earthers and trigger somebody again. I'm just saying.
I'm already triggered, man, but I love it. This is the most alive I've felt on this show in forever.
don't make promises you can't keep. All right.
Go for it.
When people were debating the issue of slavery, a lot of people said, but who's going to pick the cotton? And at the time, no one could have imagined that we were going to be sucking, and this is a reference to a bit that Molyneux does, by the way. No one could have imagined that we were going to be sucking dinosaur juice out of the ground and blowing it up in lots of little explosions to power machines that would go through the fields and pick the cotton for us and poop out t-shirts. No one could have perceived that. But the people who wanted to stand up for what was right didn't say, well, what's the law? Well, is this legal? Well, who's going to pick the cotton? They said, no, slavery is wrong and it has to end. And humanity will be better off when we stop doing this unethical thing on such a widespread basis that is creating a misallocation of resources and a destruction of value and a loss of potential. And so when you realize that taxation is theft, that government is coercive, you don't say, well, who's going to build the roads? Well, who's going to pick the cotton? Well, who's going to pay for this? Well, who's going to regulate this? Because you know, like a law of physics, like for the same reasons that you know that the earth is not flat, you know that taxation is theft. And the sooner we get past this institution of statism, the sooner we move to a more cooperative, peaceful, productive, harmonious society, the better off we'll be. So when you ask the question, who's going to build the roads? Who's going to pay for the roads? I can answer, and I did, Steve, and I answered numerous ways. You go back, listen to the tape, man. I mentioned numerous possibilities. you could do it by advertising, you could do it by tolls, you could do it by local government, you could do it by subscription, you could do it by there's so many different ways. You say, well, how are they going to collect the money? Well, like there's lots of ways to collect money. Like we have lots of ways of already collecting money. What you are reflecting is this really sad mentality of Stockholm syndrome, of being in love with your captors, of attachment to authority. And so instead of saying, gee, could we do better off without this authority? Could we do better off in freedom? You just ask, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And that's what keeps us stuck. But right now, and I think thanks to the power of the internet, thanks to the way that people are waking up like never before, especially young people who grow up with this, older people who are able to adapt to new technology as it comes along, people are waking up like never before, and we are rendering government obsolete every single day in new ways that we couldn't have even imagined generations ago. I see this cluster of government ending technologies. I'll make this real quick, but 3D printing, the internet, 3D printing of organs and limbs, drone delivery. We have supercomputers, the singularity, artificial intelligence, robotics, even self-driving cars. You think self-driving cars not a big deal? It's a big deal. 43%, according to government, of their interactions with law enforcement and civilians happen at traffic stops. Well, guess what? You can't pull people over when we're not driving cars. Sorry, that part of government has to go away. You can't justify taxing people to support a welfare state when we're also rich and prosperous and cooperative and taking care of each other at the community level. There's no reason for it. It becomes a silly absurdity. You can't tell us that the national defense is necessary, that we need to be able to make war and blow the world up 1,000 times over because people in Iran hate us and they want us dead. Like when you can get on the internet and you can Skype with someone from Iran right now and know that that's bullshit. You can go watch YouTube videos from people in Iran and see that they're just people like everybody else on this planet trying to get along, trying to make life better for future generations. And that's what the libertarians are really all about right now, is leading this evolution of humanity to a more peaceful place, to a more harmonious, cooperative, to a more free place. And you know what, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. Kyle, Steve, I really appreciate it. Even Steve being willing to show how much he was triggered in his statism by talking about.
I was definitely triggered.
One sec.
Are you saying that you're woke? Are you saying that you're woke, Adam?
I am woke. I think woke af. Is that what the kids say? Woke af.
Well,
I'm woke.
Just woke. Can I clarify for something? Nothing triggered me. I assure you, nothing triggered me.
I was triggered. I was
yeah, Kyle, politics, nothing triggers me. I don't give a fuck about politics, to be honest with you. I'm a science person and I like philosophy. But
yeah, I'm triggered.
Nothing you said makes a lick of fucking sense to me. But you're a nice guy. I'll give you that. I mean, absolutely bollocks. But I like you. Is that cool?
It's okay. Hey, read
I'm not triggered. I'm definitely not triggered. I'm not mad. Nothing makes sense. Send me a copy.
It makes sense. It's free to download in every digital.
I'll look through it. But I got to tell you, nothing you said made sense to me.
But you're lucky, Steve, because most people don't have that investment. You're like one of the astronomers who thinks the Earth is flat and has done all of these crazy calculations. Most Americans don't have that investment intellectually, emotionally in their status, and they just go, "Oh, freedom, yeah." Nonviolence.
That appeal to analogy is fallacious.
The important thing.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't use that analogy.
I like you too, Adam. I like you too.
I like Adam.
Adam, hold on, everybody.
Analogies are bad.
That analogy.
Calm down. 1 second. Let me get this out real quick. And Adam, we're going to give you the last word here in just a second, so you can close us out and say whatever you need to. But I think that you have some ideas that are in the direction where things should be. I think, like, especially with the prison. I hate that we didn't get to that. I would love to talk to you sometime about that. The prison reform. I think that's fantastic. But when you're talking about running for, an office, especially the highest office in the land, and uprooting everything, of course, people are going to have these kind of questions, because something like that would affect everybody, and you're going to have those people that didn't go for it, and they still are going to be bitter and trying to protect the government that they are used to. And I don't think it would be just an easy transition over, and you would have these.
Well, it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah, but you know, these questions are not from Steve and I. We're not from a place of trying to poke holes in every bit of
not at all.
We just didn't.
I asked the questions most people think.
General aspect of the basics that you were trying to convey. So these are questions that I think anybody would want to know the answers to, especially with such a big overhaul of the government. I mean, that's. Yeah,
and here's my advice. Look at it. If people are asking these types of questions, but by the way, nothing about my lines of questioning is that egregious. If you say to the American public, "Hey, look, you don't buy what I'm telling you, you're on the level of flat earthers," I don't think that's a good platform to go by, honestly, because
I think you and I are at a different level. I think we're having a little more friendly intellectual conversation here.
There's been nothing intellectual about this.
I'm a douchebag in a suit kind of conversation. Okay, there's a different messaging for a different audience when that happens.
Sure enough, I'll grant you that. I definitely grant you that.
Well, I want you to come back so we can talk about the prison thing sometime, because I would like to get into that. And this was fun. I mean, we don't agree on some things we do, but I think we all agree here that you're one of the coolest guests that we've ever had.
Oh yeah, I like him, dude. I tell you what, get the coupons for hookers. You got my vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been thinking about, like, I've been distracted this entire time since you mentioned coupons for hookers in the first 10 minutes, and I'm thinking, like,
dude, it's a platform. Use it.
Maybe that's what's wrong.
You're asking for the roads. You're asking me
to pay for the roads. There you go.
Hold on, you're asking me as a politician to figure out a way to get coupons for hookers, which I totally respect. I think that's a very reasonable line of questioning, as you pointed out. Absolutely.
That's a reasonable one. The one I'm actually kidding about is the reasonable one. Awesome.
Why? But why is it hard to get a hooker today?
I don't know. I've never tried, to be honest with you.
That's a good question.
Government.
I tell you what, if I had a coupon, I might.
Okay.
You want coupons for hookers? Get rid of government. Same answer. What freedom's the answer? What's the question?
You win the stream.
All right. You want me to wrap this up, Kyle, before we get off on any more sidebars here?
Yes. I just want to tell everybody, come back in about 15 minutes after we close this show, and then we'll start the gun debate. I am already winded though. This was like 4 streams in one though. But yes, we'll turn it over to Adam to have the last word and close us out for tonight.
Okay. Well, there's 2 conversations happening here, and one is this philosophical ideal, and one is this practical political plan. And I can talk about my philosophical ideals, and no one's going to agree with me on everything but me, because that's how we are. We all can only live in our own heads and nobody else's. And the thing that I've learned from now 5 or 6 national tours, depending on what you want to count as a national tour, but I've been through all the lower 48 several times. And, talking to the average people about this, when I say, hi, I'm running for president to dissolve the federal government because I don't want to be president, no one should be president, and we're better off with government localized, most of them say, you got my vote, or how do I get in on that, or how do we make that happen? That sounds awesome. They don't go to this philosophical, let's examine this or that or the other technicalities. They want to make that happen. People are hungry for this kind of fundamental change. And if you want to argue ideals, if you want to stay in that philosophical conversation and you want to talk about Republican policy and Democrat policy, or what's the best government policy for this, that, and the other, you are already buying into the fundamental premise of government that we should be forced into a one-size-fits-nobody but the profiteers kind of solution. And the answer is no, we shouldn't be. We don't have to be united under one government to be united in American values. And we can be united in freedom instead of united in tyranny when we decide that we're going to respect every individual and every community's right to decide how they want to live, how they want to be organized, and how they want to relate to other people. This is a message that unifies people, that brings everyone together, that already is unifying left, right, and center against the common enemy that is big, centralized government. We are taking it down. This is the revolution of our generation. So if you want to be a part of it, you can support my run for Senate here in Arizona. You can support my run for president that will conclude at the end, that will kick back off at the end of the Senate race, win, lose, or draw. And most importantly, you can think and love and enjoy life and spread this awareness and help wake other people up. This is one tool. This is why I made it free. You can share it, free audiobook, free in every digital format. You can get it very cheap from us on Amazon. We sell it as close to cost as possible because I am the greediest asshole on the planet. I want to see everybody believe in my ideas. They're not mine, not even mine at all. The most human of ideas of respect for individual freedom, of love for your fellow human beings. This is what it's all about. It comes down to freedom. So I hope you'll embrace it. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll be a part of this, because the only thing that sucks more than facing the consequences of standing up to unjust authority and winning that great battle for humanity, moving us forward past this, is going to be sitting on the sidelines and telling your kids, yeah, I watched that happen. I saw that happen on television, as opposed to being able to say, when I saw this going down, when I saw the opportunity, when I saw that I had the chance for you to be born, to live, to grow up, to prosper on the other side of statism, I did absolutely everything I could in my power to stand up for freedom. That's what I want to be able to tell my grandchildren. That's what I'm doing, and I'm grateful for everybody who's made that same commitment.
I actually hate people, but that's okay.
If
you
want to support, if you want to support,
that's the disagreement. I say love people.
Real quick, Kyle. You want to do the super chats in the next episode because we're running out of time. We got to get that.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to transition over. We will read your super chats, but if you want to support Adam and what he does, it's on your screen right below his window. Adam, or it's kokeshforpresident.com, and the link for that book, Freedom, will be in the description, as well as his website